Hey, what's up? It's jaydietayte. I'm back again with another video. It's been a while. So, as you can tell by the title of the video, this is how to stretch your ears the proper way or correct way and how to do it the wrong way. So I'm going to go through my experience, the things you'll need, and things you should do, things you shouldn't do. So without further ado, let's just keep on going into it. So I just put a lamp on, hoping that would help the lighting a little bit better. If you can see, like, my eyeliner is messed up, it's because I had false eyelashes on and I took them off because it's, like, late in the day. But anyways, so first of all, I'm going to go over a couple of things that I feel like should be mentioned. First of all, if you are under the age of 18, you always need to ask your parents. Don't do what I did and just start doing it. At least talk with your parents about it, explain what it is, try to get their approval. If you know you're going to get in a huge amount of trouble, I recommend not just going for it. Whereas I knew my mom wasn't going to do much about it, so I just kind of did it and didn't go big. But always talk to your parents first, try to get their permission, get their approval. I'm not going to advocate going behind your parents' back like I did. Like, that's not a good move that I did, but now it doesn't matter as much because my mom doesn't really care. She doesn't mind that they're, like, really small. Secondly, please don't call them gauges. That is the unit of measurement. In America, we use the form gauge as a measurement, and we also use inches, whereas in other countries around the world, they'll use, like, millimeters, centimeters, meters, all depends. Because, you know, they use metric, and in America, we don't. Please make sure you're researching it first. That's me with, like, any body modification, honestly. That's what you should be doing with any body modification, because it can be permanent depending. Which gets me into my next thing. If you have a job or you plan to get a job in the future that will not allow you to have stretched ears, either don't do it if you already have the job, or don't go big. Whereas mine are like 2 gauges, and these are as big as I'm going to go because anything bigger I think will look weird on me. If you go above a 00, at that point, there really isn't a point of return. Some people, their ears won't even close after they get up to a double gauge. Whereas, like, I think mine wouldn't if I went past a 2 gauge. I don't think they'd close. I've had my plugs out before for, like, a week when they've been a 2 gauge, and they've gone down to, like, a 6 again. So I know mine will close, and they close fairly quickly, especially when you keep them out. But if you're going to have a job, or you have a job that doesn't allow it, don't do it or don't go big. And so my fourth and final thing that I want to touch on is, I know I already said this, but make sure you're doing your research. Please, 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 please do it the correct way. Don't do it like I did, where I did it incorrectly at first and bad things happened. If you think you're getting an infection, go to the doctor. It never hurts. But if you go to the doctor and they tell you to take them out, know that your doctor doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. Go to a piercer instead and ask. Because if you have an infection, you're not supposed to take out a piercing or a plug. It will create an abscess and then you will need to get surgery. So if anything, go to your piercer first, and if they think you need, like, antibiotics that they can't give to you, go to your doctor then and say, this is what my piercer said, I just need antibiotics. That's all I need. Do not tell me to take the jewelry out. I will not do it. So yes, do your research, make sure you know the pros, the cons, and like I said, if you want to go into something that won't let you do it, just don't do it or don't go big. So next, I want to get into all the supplies you are going to need. As you're going to need, when you're starting out, you're going to need tapers, single flared plugs or plugs that have no flare to them, so like they have O-rings on both ends. Don't stretch your ears with double flared plugs right away. That is a whole nother story. If you want to hear my horror story with double flared plugs of why I'll never wear them, let me know. Next of all, you're going to need some type of oil, whether it's jojoba oil or vitamin E oil or both. And then lastly, this is like when you get into bigger sizes, or if you don't want to use the taper method, you're going to need PTFE tape. And I will show you all these things once I start talking about my experience with stretching. But these are the bare bone basics that you're going to need. Other things that you may need down the line are some aspirin. You can crush it up and make like a watery paste with it to put on your ear if it's swollen. You might need sea salt, just to help do a little bit of a sea salt soak on your ears. If you want to know how to do a sea salt soak, look it up. I've never done them, so I don't know how to do them. I've never had to, but definitely look it up. Things that you definitely want to avoid when you're stretching your ears are hydrogen peroxide, so H2O2, and rubbing alcohol, because these will dry out your ears and it will make everything a lot more irritated. If you think you have an infection, consult a piercer first or consult a doctor and see what they think, but I feel like a piercer would know better about that. Other things you'll need for your ears, you won't need a whole lot. You'll need antibacterial soap to clean them. Like with any other piercing, if you've ever gotten a piercing, like even if you've gotten your ears pierced, you know that you need to use some form of solution to clean your ears. And you're mainly just going to be cleaning them in the shower, and then you're going to want to oil them up all the time. So those are all the things you're going to need. Of course, like for Teflon tape, you'll need scissors to cut it. You'll need to sanitize your jewelry first in whichever way you want to. You can either use rubbing alcohol for that, let it completely dry, and then use oil, or you can use hydrogen peroxide, or you can just use antibacterial soap and clean it. It's whatever is your preference and whatever you think is going to work best for your ears. So those are all the things you're going to need. Now let's get into my story and the proper and improper ways to stretch ears. So when I first started stretching my ears, I did it the improper way. So I want to touch on the improper way first. So to start off with, I went to Hot Topic and I bought plug and taper sets, and I bought 14 gauge through 4 gauge. Now before I had ever stretched my ears, I had them pierced since I was in kindergarten, but I had shoved captive hoops that were 16 gauges through my actual piercings like a long time before this, and they had healed, and so my ears were at a 16 gauge. That's completely optional. It's all up to personal preference. For me, I think it made stretching up to a 14 a lot easier, but stretching to a 14 isn't that painful in general. Like, I know people who have gone straight to a 14, they say it hardly hurts. It's all about your pain tolerance and what you like. I never thought I was going to stretch my ears. I always hated it until I started doing it. Then I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. But, so I put the captive hoops in because I liked them. And from then on, I just started stretching. So anyways, so I went to Hot Topic. I got these acrylic kits. You never want to do acrylic. You don't even really want to do acrylic when your ears are healed, because acrylic has little ridges in it, so it's never fully sanitized. It can harbor bacteria very easily, and it's just overall hard on your ears. Yes, it's lightweight, and it seems like it should be a good thing for when you're stretching your ears and you want them to heal and like not be like all saggy, but in the long run, it's a lot more dangerous. But I was an idiot and did it anyways. So here are what they look like. I just bought these kits. You can't even see the 4 gauge plugs in here because I lost all the O-rings to them. Another like supply you might need is like a bag of O-rings, because those things can go missing so quickly. Like, I'll show you my current plugs. Like, when you look at it, you can see there's, I don't think it's going to focus the greatest, but there's like a little bump right there that keeps the O-ring in place. Those are the best plugs in my opinion. It's all up to personal preference. But, so when I first started stretching with these, I never wore tapers as jewelry. Never wear tapers as jewelry. That is going to cause an imbalance in your ears and they're not going to heal properly. Don't get acrylic, but I'm going to share with you what I did. So here's what a little 14 gauge taper looks like. Smallest little thing you will ever see. These came with O-rings, which, like I said, you never want to wear tapers as jewelry, but the O-rings came in handy when I would lose O-rings for the actual plugs. But how you're going to do this is, what I did is I took whatever hair oil I had laying around, and for the most part that was this stuff, the Ion Inspired by Nature Nourishing Oil Treatment. Not the best to use on your ears. You can use it, but I do not recommend it. I highly, highly, highly recommend caving and buying at least vitamin E oil, because it's a lot cheaper than jojoba oil and easier to come by, especially if you live in a town like mine where there's like nothing. So anyways, I took this. I took obviously like the little O-rings off of my taper, and I held it up to the ear and I pushed it through when it was all lubed up. It was very slippery, like that's how much freaking oil there was. There was oil on my fingers, oil on my ear, oil on the taper. Pushed it through, And as soon as like I had it sitting there, I grabbed the plug with, actually I had no O-rings on initially. I learned later on it's better to have one O-ring on if they're not even single flared, like as you can see with these. Shoved it through, put the O-ring on, let it heal. Now, first thing, do not skip sizes. I never skipped a size, but I know plenty of people that did and had so many issues with their ears because of it. Like one of my friends went straight to an 8 gauge from her regular pierced ear, and it took a month for them to stop being in pain, and it should never take that long for your ears to stop being in pain, and her ears were just in really bad shape. She still continued to stretch them, and now she's at, I think, half an inch? I'm not sure. All I know is her ears were fucked for a long time. So, the second thing is you're gonna wanna wait at least a month in between stretches, but as I will tell you, I did not do that, especially at the beginning. What I did is I waited until they stopped to hurt, and I stopped getting all those little blood vessels, like not blood vessels, those white blood cells coming from them, because when you first stretch them, you're going to have a little bit of discharge in your ears. It's completely normal. It's just white blood cells. It looks like pus. That's essentially what it is. It's completely normal. If you have obscene amounts of it, it's not normal. And if your ears smell, that means you just need to clean them. But I would like wait until that was away. Usually it would take like 4 days, and then 2 days or like 3 days later I would stretch them again because that's when they didn't hurt at all anymore. So I would go up a size, and I kept doing that until I got to an 8 gauge. When I got to an 8 gauge, I stretched up to a 6 way too soon and had a mini blowout. Blowouts are very common if you don't stretch your ears properly, especially the way I did it. Also, mini blowouts are very, very, very common once you go from an 8 to a 6 gauge. But since I had like a week in between the time frame, I had a little bit worse of a blowout than before. So what I did is I left them in for like 1 day, and after I realized what was happening with my ears, I downsized. I took the 6 gauges out and immediately put the 8 gauges in. Now, I didn't completely take the piercing out because I knew that that was a bad thing to do. An abscess would form, especially since with how irritated they were. I figured they might have been infected, so I just straight up downsized. I didn't wait for them to heal with a 6 gauge in. I downsized, left them at an 8 for a very, very, very long time. I waited 2.5 months before stretching again. I wanted to be sure my ears were fine. And that will get me into when I started doing them properly. So this has all been how to not stretch your ear. So after I had changed my ways and gotten my senses, I figured out how to properly stretch ears. And it's actually fairly simple. So what I started doing is I started waiting at least a month in between each stretch. I know it can be annoying, especially if you really, really, really want to get to your goal size, but it's something you absolutely need to do. It needs to be at least a month, no less than a month. You can go as high as you like. About the approximation is between 1 and 2 months, though. Like I said, when I had gone back down to an 8, I waited 2.5 months before I stretched up again. And then I stretched up to a 6 using the taping method. Now, if I didn't use the taping method, what you would do is you'd use the taper method as before, not using acrylics, using at least stainless steel. You can use straight up silver if they make those, or gold ones, but don't use acrylic. Don't use silicone especially. Don't use quartz. I highly recommend to not use wood just because it wouldn't really work, but you could. But anyway, so what you would do in that instance is you would be using your vitamin E or jojoba oil, lubing it up, obviously, and doing what I had been doing before of pushing the taper through gently, putting the plug through, and then closing it off with the O-rings, and then you would wait a month at least. Now, I didn't want to risk getting a mini blowout again because I saw it was very, very, very common from an 8 to a 6, and that was so painful. I knew it wasn't going to be as bad, but I just didn't want to go through it again, so I started using the taping method. This, I feel, is a safer method and a lot more gentle on your ears, and it's what you will have to end up using if you go above a 00. Even though they do make technically tapers for higher than 00, you should not use them at all. Past 00, even I'd say past a 0 is pushing using a taper. But you're going to want some PTFE tape or Teflon tape, bondage tape, whatever you can get your hands on. I believe you have to be 18 in order to get bondage tape, bleh. But this stuff is like dirt cheap. I got a pack of 2 for like 97 cents, I want to say, at Walmart. And you do go through a lot of it, but like I said, it's really, 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 really cheap. It sticks to itself, so all you need to do is put oil on it. Like you put oil on the plug and you wrap it around, and you gradually will keep building up the tape. So you'll wrap like a couple layers around for one day, push it through your ear, close it off, clean your ears like normal, change out the tape every couple of days, but also every couple of days I'd recommend adding more tape. So when you're going to change it out, add more tape. And you keep doing that until you're the next size up. It's a lot gentler. It does not really hurt unless you do it improperly. And it's a lot safer for your ears because you're not forcing tapers through. You're not going to accidentally bleed because you accidentally shoved a taper through too soon like I did. Or you're not going to have a blowout really because of it. It's just going to gradually make your ears bigger. And I find that it's a lot nicer when your ears aren't in pain all the time like that. And plus, it's getting you to the next size up quicker, in my opinion. It still takes about a month to get you up to that size and like to heal properly, but in my experience, it took me 2 weeks to get to my goal size of like from an 8 to a 6, and then it took another couple of weeks to fully heal because it had been in the process of healing continuously. And I still feel like you should probably wait a full month, but I didn't. My ears were fine, but I'm not recommending it. So yeah, you'll just gradually do that, and you'll do that until your ears are big enough and at your goal size. And my goal size was a 2 gauge, so that's what this looks like. I did try using double flare plugs once. Don't do it. Just don't do it, because like I said, like these kits came with up to 4 gauge and I wanted 2 gauge. So I immediately bought plugs that I wanted to put in my ears. They were rose gold. That's the entire reason I bought them. I'm like, oh, double flare, that'll be fine. It wasn't fine. Like I said, if you want to hear that horror story, let me know. But so that's how you properly will stretch up your ears. You will oil them up at least twice a day, once in the morning, once at night, and you're going to use either PTFE tape or you're going to use the taper method and gradually go up until you can't go up with tapers anymore, and then you have to use tape. Or you're at your goal size, you never know. So now I want to mention a few things that you definitely should not do that I did not touch on earlier. Number 1, do not use lotion when stretching your ears. I know a friend who tried using lotion when she first started stretching her ears because she thought it was really easy. She didn't do a lot of research into it. Like I said, she went straight to an 8 from a regular size piercing, which is very, very, very painful. But she used lotion, and why you shouldn't use lotion is because 1, it's not good for your ears, like it's not good for a fresh piercing. 2, the fragrances can irritate the piercing very quickly. And 3, it's not nourishing your ears. It's not giving your ears the benefits that jojoba oil or vitamin E oil will. It's not making them elastic. It's not making them stretchy. It's not really building your ear health. So it's not doing anything other than getting the stretch done. So don't use, just don't use lotion. It's not good for your ears. The second thing that needs to be mentioned is make sure you are cleaning your plugs regularly, especially when they're first stretching. Now, this may seem like a no-brainer, but I even neglected in the beginning, and I know tons of other people who neglect it all the time. You need to be washing your plugs regularly, and this can just include when you're in the shower, like when they're healed, taking them out in the shower and cleaning them and putting them back in, or just showering completely without them and letting those soak in like rubbing alcohol while you're in there. It can involve an array of things, but when you're first stretching them, I highly recommend using antibacterial soap to clean everything. And if you're using PTFE tape, it's supposed to be changed every couple of days anyways, so it's like, it's kind of like sanitizing itself, I guess. But, so definitely clean your plugs, because otherwise your ears will smell, you can get bacteria buildup in there, you can have all sorts of health issues, and it's just not a good time. Make sure you're not sleeping directly on the fresh piercing right away. If you've ever had your ears pierced before, which if you're stretching your ears, you have to have your ears pierced. Like if they're not pierced and you want to stretch your ears, obviously go get them pierced. So if you've ever had a fresh piercing before, especially like a more elaborate piercing, like I know when I had my tragus pierced, I did not sleep on this side of my face for 6 months. The entire time I was letting it heal. When you first stretch your ears, you can definitely end up sleeping on them eventually. Like it's not something that's permanent, it's just while they are still in the process of healing for at least that first week, try not to sleep on them because 1, it's painful, 2, it suffocates them more and they don't get as much like airflow and they're not as breathable and they're not getting like as much circulation, I guess, there, if that makes sense. And then 3, it's prolonging the healing period. It's like piercing is on, and that's not something you want. You're not going to get hypertrophic scarring on your stretched ears. At least I've never heard of it. Maybe it does happen. I've just never seen it and never heard of it. So, but those are like the 3 main things. Don't use lotion, don't sleep on it, and then what was the other one that I mentioned? I already forget. Oh yeah, cleaning them. It's been a day. And so that's everything. If you want to see, like I said, a separate video on my double flare plug experience, if you want to see my naked lobes at all, if you have any questions about piercings in general, just let me know because I have, not a lot, but I have quite a few. I mean, I have my second lobes, my tragus, my nose. So, thank you so much for watching. Peace out.